let's go, baby. All right, peace and blessings to you, Max. How are you today?
I am great, Emerald. Peace and blessings to you. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. It was great running with you earlier.
Same to you. Same to you. Pretty manageable run.
Right. Thanks for adding on a little extra time to stick around, too.
Of course, gladly.
And you've heard all about this project, so you know
Yeah.
who this is right here. We got
Uh-huh.
man Marcus.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're really interested to learn more about your relationship to the land here, the fight around this land, and across Philadelphia too. What are some of your personal experiences with FDR Park?
I moved to Philly, South Philly, in 2018, and it became clear to me right away that FDR Park was the largest green space in the area, so I started coming here every now and again, but it really accelerated in the lockdowns of 2020 when I needed somewhere to be outside for a longer period that had green space that wasn't just the sidewalk. So I would come here and I would run the loop here and do my 5K that way, and then in 2022, I finally ventured out to the meadows for the first time, and I spent just a few hours there without my phone, without anything of that nature, just, walking among the plants, the little birds, the pollinators, the bees, everything of that nature, and just letting my mind wander, and realizing that, this could be a place I come back to frequently, but then 5 days later, it started getting bulldozed. So I was briefly involved with Save the Meadows, the organizing group as well.
How did you connect with that group?
I don't exactly remember, but I think, if I had to guess, it was somebody posted on Instagram they're bulldozing FDR Park with photos, and I eventually figured out that came from the Save the Meadows account or somehow navigated there. But I can't perfectly remember how I connected with them in the first place.
I didn't see the bulldozers today. We've shot the bulldozers over there.
Mm-hmm.
I also didn't see hundreds of trees. How does that land now compare to 2, 3 years ago?
So it's hard to fully say because they have the entrance to the meadows blocked off, so I haven't been able to go back in. But you can see into it that it is more barren, that there are far fewer trees, that they have indeed knocked a bunch of trees down. So even if I can't speak to it from a perspective of being inside it, from the outside, it does feel like it's no longer there.
It's tragic. Just even running by right now, looking at it right now, it's sad.
Yeah, it really is.
What were some memorable moments organizing with the people through Save the Meadows?
Yeah, certainly the most memorable moment we had was one that really showed me the fight that we have and also was somewhat discouraging. It was January 2023, and the city had called a town hall at Grand Yesha Ballroom on 23rd and Snyder to meet with the community to get their thoughts about, do you want FDR Park to be deforested and turned into sporting greens, or do you want it to remain as is? You would think that it's a town hall and they would let everybody in, but it was clear that if you showed up with a sign that was saying anything in favor of keeping FDR Park and its trees as is, they were not going to let you in. I think, but I can't remember for certain, that they were asking people, what side are you on, in that language, but I may be making that part up. What I do know is that if somebody got in by hiding and was hiding a sign and then, showed it at the town hall, or they spoke in favor of the park, they did get thrown out. And I say thrown out in the most literal sense. They did watch a security guard literally throw somebody out of the building and their head hit the pavement on the sidewalk. And I remember somebody from Save the Meadows shouting at the security guards, something along the lines of you're all class traitors for this, how could you be doing this? Because it was all of the security guards were black folks, and you can't really look at somebody of a certain race and determine their bracket of income. But I think the person was thinking, this is a black person, they are a security guard. Security guards don't necessarily get paid well. Why are they carrying out the wishes of the developers and billionaires who want to convert this land into sporting greens? I think that was the logic there. And then she said something about they're coming for all of us in the way of if they're taking our land, what can't they take? They're coming at us from all sides. And it really got me thinking yeah, that is true. The government is working far more on the behest of billionaires to advance their causes, which destroy the land and remove opportunities of all sorts for the everyday person, than working for the everyday person. So that was kind of an eye-opening moment for me. But why I also said it was kind of discouraging is that I don't really think that Save the Meadows ratcheted up the fight too much from there. And also it just kind of seemed to fizzle out as a group. They do still exist. I think they've reactivated in some recent months, especially because at the time we're speaking, this coming Tuesday, there's some sort of testimony at City Hall about this. But there was a period where I found they were relatively inactive, and I couldn't really, get involved with them due to that.
Okay. Yeah, I just learned about that, and I might actually go to court that day just to support. Now, on the day that you described, were there developer interests present, some of the billionaires that you're describing?
I wasn't in the room, so I can't say for certain, but it is my understanding that yes, they were.
Okay. Okay. And so you're no longer quite as involved, but you come here every now and then still.
Yeah, I do still come here. I also should say something more about the day of in January 2023, which is like when we figured out what was happening in terms of like the city not really responding to the people. We did block off Snyder at like the intersection of Snyder in front of Grand Yesha Ballroom and whatever side street that was, and it was like as people who are, fighting for the people, we support public transit, but we had to like block off a bus from being able to go down Snyder. Like that's how serious it got. There were like somewhere around like 100 to 200 of us just in the street blocking traffic flow as a response, and a lot of cops showed up. I didn't see anything get out of hand between the cops and the protesters, even though that's very common. In this case, I didn't see it happen. But, with the cops so much as being there, there was the possibility of it. But I wanted to bring that up also as a testament to like, we didn't just stand there and take it. At that moment, we didn't just stand there and take it.
Right. So that speaks to like a multi-pronged approach to, resisting these forces of ecocide.
Yeah.
Including that court-based struggle, that legal struggle. Why is FDR important? Like, why should we even defend this land?
I mean, I think we should be defending all land. Like, I think it's pretty brazen of us and presumptuous of us to say, this is this land, we can transform it for whatever means we want. Granted, humans are always going to live with technology, and, like, you can't not have homes. Like, people need homes. People need to convert the land in that way. But I think to say, hey, this is land full of plants and birds and bees, and, like, pollination is such an important part of actually having food-producing plants, to then come and say we're going to destroy this all just for sports fields when there are already so many sports fields in Philly is just, I don't even have the word for it other than bad. It's like such an elementary thing to me that the only word I have for it is bad.
Who are some of the organizations that are involved today? You mentioned Save the Meadows. Do you know any other active groups?
I don't really. It feels like this is like a one-group fight. I mean, I'm sure that many of the other more left-leaning or fully leftist organizing groups support the cause, but to say that they're involved in it, I don't know that I could say that I mean it.
Okay. How have so-called development efforts impacted the land? Like, what do you see around you right now?
Well, mostly the loop itself is the same, but when you look beyond the loop and you look into where the Meadows once were, it's definitely more barren, and it shows signs of like there's a fence up. There's clearly signs of human activity there. So there is that. But in terms of FDR Park itself, I don't see a ton of development yet. I think I've heard plans about them trying to do things with this park for the Olympics or whatever event we're hosting. I don't even know. Maybe it's the World Cup. I really don't know. But the park itself does look the same, other than I don't know if it was always the case that the park flooded this easily, but it definitely does flood easily.
How do you foresee the future of this park?
I'm not super optimistic, but I can't really be a total cynic. That wouldn't get me anywhere. I think I'll have a better answer to that question after this coming Tuesday. But I think we do have a history of more often than not developers getting what they want. I mean, until the developers behind the arena in Chinatown were like, we're actually going to take it to the south, they were for all intents and purposes going to destroy Chinatown to build this arena, even though the people clearly didn't want that. Like the polling was like 69% of people were against it, and yet 13 or 12 out of the 17 city councilors passed it. The billionaires were going to do it. I say that all to say that like if the city wants to turn the meadows of FDR Park into a soccer field, they're more likely to succeed than not. Because even though I stand pretty strongly against that, I think you're not going to get 69% opposition to that, because it's a small local thing. People outside of South Philly, and even in some of the further north reaches of South Philly and northwest and northeast reaches of South Philly, might not be thinking about it because they have other green spaces they can go to. Right. Whereas the arena would have affected the whole city.
Right. Yeah, the whole city kind of like coalesced around that issue, and in a way it's even bigger than Philly, right? Like it garnered national attention.
It really did.
What are some challenges and successes in organizing to defend land? Whether taking the Chinatown fight as an example, any kind of fight.
I think it's that the odds are stacked against us when you have, like, at least since the 70s, like, the conservative Christo-fascist movement, like, infiltrating the government and transforming the government into a thing that is far less likely to listen to its people. Which is not to say that everybody in the government is of that mentality, but many such people are. And, like, even, like, the Democrats, which are supposedly a left party, are, like, ultimately a center-right party, with the fact that, like, they have billionaire funding. On the federal level, at the very least, they are basically in line with the Republicans in terms of who they're nominating or rather approving of for positions. And you trickle that down to Philly, and you have a nearly entirely Democratic city council voting to fund a billionaire project rather than to listen to 69% of people. Like, that's the challenge in opposing. I also think our tactics are not the best because we live in a society where we're told, like, call your representatives, like, write letters, which that implies that the representatives actually care. And maybe somebody like Nick O'Rourke or Kendra Brooks or Rue Landau does. Like, we have people in there who do care, but that's 3 out of 17 people. We have a history in this country of like militarized unions and general strikes being far more effective, but we're at a time in history where the economy, there's been such a transfer of wealth to the billionaires that to not be working is to immediately put yourself at risk of, just losing everything you have. And we have such a militarized and weaponized local police, let alone national, federal guard, whatever you call them, the army in short, that the prospect of protesting in those ways is a very reasonably scary thing. I think it needs to be done. I think it's easier to organize than we think, but I do completely understand the fear and understand that, like, because people do still have some quality of life, we're ways off from actually achieving that. And I think until then, we're going to have the challenge in organizing of taking neoliberal tactics to fascist people.
You got on a roll there. Yeah, that was great.
It actually was better than the last time you answered that.
I'll take it.
Great answer.
Thank you.
So how's your relationship with groups involved with organizing today?
In terms of relationship to groups organizing in FDR Park, I'm not connected with them, but it's definitely not antagonistic. I don't want to put it like that. Like, I didn't have a falling out with them. I just didn't get involved. The thing is that I am involved with the group previously known as No Arena Neighborhood that will be changing its name. I'm not at liberty to announce it. So that's taking up some of my time. I'm trying to get involved with Food Not Bombs. And then, of course, I have Runners for Justice in Palestine, which we often say isn't an organizing group, but it is, a solidarity group, and that is a time commitment. And I do just have a lot of community-oriented groups I'm involved with, even if it's not necessarily that they are organizing groups. They're more solidarity and community groups. And that is important to me because when you have community in times of need, you can build from that. But the balance I have of community groups or organizing groups is not exactly the most action-achieving thing. And also, I'm not the kind of person that has the capacity to organize all the time just because, I do have work, I do have, family and partner life, and it is important to have a social life despite the fact that if you look at, say, Palestine, life is literally being erased because without a social life, you don't have a community, you don't have people to turn to when, like, it's your time to be in need, it's your time being targeted. Like, these things are important, and they're also just life-giving. Like, I'm not going to say that, like, you should shut out your social circle because other people's lives are being destroyed. I don't think I can say that. But I do say this all to say that, like, it is a challenge to find enough time to organize and be somewhat of an activist in the circumstances that we have as a society and that I have personally in my life.
Right. Well, it is life-giving, life-affirming as well. You've infused some life into this project. Appreciate everything that you've contributed to it. Great interview here today. Is there any final thoughts that you want to share?
I think I just want people to harp a little bit on what I said about, like, militarized unions and general strikes, because, like, I know a lot of well-meaning people who, like, go and, like, they vote Democrat and they write letters, and, like, I'm not going to tell them not to write letters. I might tell them not to vote Democrat. But I think that we could transform that method of organizing into something that is more of a militant union and a general strike, and that people would say all the fears that I mentioned, and that one thing we can try to do is work on building out a general strike fund where, we all start pooling in a bunch of our monetary and other resources to supporting a strike. 'Cause it's not just about having money. If somebody, like, is really good at cooking for groups, then if people are out of work and can't afford groceries, you go and you join the striking group and you cook for them. I think there were versions of this that were happening when Seattle had its autonomous zone in the summer of 2020 after the wake of the protests arising from George Floyd's murder. And I think we can look to that model for the future.
Okay. Yeah.